Delta planes crash NYC. Two Delta planes collide at LaGuardia Airport, raising fresh concerns over FAA cuts. Travel chaos erupted at New York City's LaGuardia Airport on Wednesday night after two Delta Airlines planes collided while taxiing on the runway. The incident occurred at approximately 9:56 p.m., involving two Bombardier CRJ-900 regional jets operated by Delta subsidiary Endeavour Air. Now let's uncover the details of this story on the AI podcast.
Picture this scene for a moment. It's late Wednesday night, LaGuardia Airport, one of the busiest, most complex airports in the U.S. And you've got these two big commercial jets, Bombardier CRJ-900s, both operated by Endeavour Air. That's a Delta subsidiary. They're not like 30,000 feet up fighting turbulence or anything. They're both just moving slowly on the ground, and yet they collide.
Yeah.
A low-speed crash, sure, but still causing, a detached wing, pretty bad nose damage, passengers startled, evacuated onto the tarmac. It just sounds like something that, it shouldn't happen, right? It's statistically almost impossible. So our deep dive today, it isn't just about, what exactly happened on the ground there at LGA. It's really about why aviation insiders are looking at this non-fatal, low-speed kind of fender bender and treating it like a massive warning signal.
Yeah, a really loud one.
That the whole U.S. air safety system might be under some serious strain.
That's exactly the mission here. We've got the specifics on the LaGuardia incident itself, and we've also pulled together the context from aviation experts talking about budget issues, FAA staff shortages. Pretty severe ones, apparently. So the idea is to get past just the headline, two planes bumped, and connect this local thing, this operational hiccup, to these bigger systemic vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
The kind that could potentially lead to much worse things way up high.
Okay. All right, let's start with the incident itself then. Let's unpack the specifics. This collision happened Wednesday night around 9:56 p.m. LaGuardia.
Yep. And it involved those two specific regional jets, the CRJ-900s, both Endeavour Air. So one plane, flight DL5047, it was arriving from Charlotte CLT, and it was just taxiing towards its gate slowly.
Right.
And the collision happened when that arriving jet, it got hit by the second Delta regional jet. It was also moving around on the taxiway.
Huh. So even going slow, the damage wasn't nothing.
Oh, definitely not.
You mentioned a detached wing, significant nose damage. That's visible structural stuff.
This is.
Must have created some immediate chaos for the people actually on those planes.
Absolutely. And the immediate response, the human side, was key. Passengers, crew, they were evacuated right away onto the tarmac.
Onto the tarmac.
Yeah. Then they got put on buses, taken back to Terminal C. Thankfully, reports say only one passenger had a non-life-threatening injury. Taken to a hospital, just, as a precaution.
Okay, good. Good that it wasn't worse injury-wise.
Right. And from the airport's perspective, the officials were quick to say, look, this minor crash didn't really disrupt LGA operations overall.
But that's kind of the rub, isn't it?
Oh, so?
Well, on paper, okay, minor incident. Minimal disruption to the airport schedule. But think about those passengers standing there on the tarmac, looking at a plane with its wing torn off. That basic question must have just been screaming in their heads. How? How could this happen?
Yeah.
Two professional crews, planes moving at maybe walking speed, and what's supposed to be a totally controlled environment, and they crash.
And that question, how? That's exactly the pivot point for this whole discussion. Because while LGA might, shrug it off publicly as a minor inconvenience, people who track the industry, they're seeing this seemingly small ground collision as the latest sign, a really clear one, that the operational margins, the safety buffers, they're getting thinner.
I see.
So the question for those insiders isn't just about those two specific planes at LGA. It's about the bigger picture this crash fits into now.
Okay, tell us about that bigger picture then, because the source material we look at, it points to a pretty troubling pattern before this LaGuardia thing even happened.
It really does, yeah. If you just look back a bit earlier this year, the alarm bells were already ringing pretty loudly. This pattern, you could say, it kicked off with some major incidents, things that really got a lot of attention and put the FAA under scrutiny.
Like what?
Well, take late January. January 29th specifically, there was that collision at Reagan National Airport, DCA. That one was tragic, 67 fatalities.
Wow, okay. That's major.
Huge. Then, just about a week and a half later, February 6th, a small plane crash up in Alaska. 10 lives lost there.
Okay.
And then just 4 days after that, February 10th, you had two private jets collide at Scottsdale Airport in Arizona. 1 person killed, 4 injured in that one.
Man, that's a really rapid series of accidents. January 29th, February 6th, February 10th.
Exactly.
Some obviously much, much worse than others, but all happening so close together.
Right.
That's not just, bad luck. That kind of sequence puts enormous pressure on the whole system, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The severity of those earlier incidents, especially the one at Reagan National, it really ramped up the political pressure, the industry scrutiny on safety, on FAA resources, everything.
Right.
So the LaGuardia crash, even though it was comparatively minor injury-wise, it happened right when the system was already feeling stretched, already under this intense microswim. So it almost acts like this confirmation. It highlights that operational fragility, that vulnerability that people inside the industry, whistleblowers, had already been warning about.
Got it. So it's not just the crash itself, but the timing and the context that makes it significant.
Precisely.
And this brings us then to that deeper layer you mentioned, the systemic issue. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, facing staffing issues, budget cuts, and how that directly impacts the safety nets that are supposed to prevent these kinds of mistakes, whether they're, errors taxiing on the ground or maybe data errors affecting things in the cockpit.
And what's really striking here, based on the sources, is how targeted some of these cuts seem to be.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about general belt tightening across the board. Our sources specifically point to critical budget cuts hitting one very specific, crucial team, the FAA's Obstacle Data Team.
The Obstacle Data Team. Because the name sounds kind of dry, bureaucratic maybe, but the function sounds, well, absolutely vital. What exactly does this team do, and how does that relate to preventing collisions on the ground or, up in the air?
Right. So this team, they basically build and maintain the critical digital map of the sky, the one that pilots and air traffic controllers rely on constantly, every single second, really. Their job is to meticulously map aviation hazards. So think about new skyscrapers going up, wind turbines, power lines, big radio towers.
Okay.
Anything that could potentially pose a collision risk, especially during takeoff and landing in really congested areas near big cities.
So they're like the specialized map makers for the airspace.
Exactly. Highly specialized cartographers of the sky, you could say.
That sounds incredibly critical, fundamental infrastructure work, right? And it must need constant, super careful updates because cities and landscapes are always changing.
Constantly changing. It's a huge ongoing task. And that's why the reported reduction in their manpower is, it's pretty shocking. This team, sources say, used to have around 20 of these specialized aeronautical information specialists.
20. Okay.
And it's reportedly been cut down to just 8 members.
8 from 20?
Down to 8, yeah.
Wow. That's less than half the staff for the entire country.
For the entire U.S., tasked with monitoring this constantly evolving built environment.
How does the FAA justify cutting a team like that by more than 60%?
Yeah.
That handles data that seems so fundamental to safety.
Huh.
Are they saying new technology, AI, or satellites or something is picking up the slack?
Well, according to the sources we looked at, the short answer seems to be no. It doesn't sound like they're replacing that lost human expertise with some robust, validated new tech. It sounds more like they're just trying to do the same massive job with a skeleton crew.
That sounds risky.
Extremely. We found a quote from an anonymous FAA employee in the materials who really stressed this point. They said that without the detailed, careful work of this specific team, air traffic controllers just cannot operate safely. And they warned that pilots would, and this is a direct quote, quite literally be flying blind.
Flying blind?
Especially, they said, when pilots are relying on automated systems, which so many do now, because those systems depend entirely on the accuracy of that mapped data.
Okay, this raises a really chilling question then about how a disaster could actually happen.
Yeah.
If one of those, just 8 specialists, is completely overloaded with work and they make a mistake, like they map a new building or a tower just slightly wrong location, wrong height, how does that data error turn into a plane crash?
The connection is frighteningly direct.
Yeah.
Especially now with modern cockpits relying so heavily on things like autopilot and sophisticated flight management systems, the FMS.
Right, the computers that fly the plane.
Exactly. And those systems use the obstacle databases, the very databases maintained by this tiny team, to calculate the safest flight paths. Especially during really high-pressure situations like instrument approach procedures. That's when pilots are flying basically just by instruments because visibility is terrible.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah. So if a building's location is mapped just a little bit off or its height is wrong in that database, The FMS, the computer, could calculate a descent path that seems perfectly safe on screen,
But isn't.
but isn't. It could guide the plane right into that incorrectly mapped obstacle during a low visibility approach, or maybe during a tricky takeoff over a developing area. It's like a silent failure mechanism built right into the system because of bad data,
Wow.
as one of the whistleblowers put it, starkly. A building could be mapped in the wrong place or the wrong height. We're talking about the destruction of lives and airplanes.
So if we sort of step back and look at the whole picture you painted, it's this perfect storm brewing almost. You have this relatively minor, low-speed operational mistake at LaGuardia, the kind of thing a really resilient system should probably absorb without much issue.
Right.
But it's happening at the exact moment when this critical but largely unseen safety infrastructure, like the obstacle data team, is severely weakened.
Yeah.
Compromised by these staffing cuts, these budget issues.
That's it, exactly. That's the connection. The big takeaway here isn't just about the dramatic crashes that make the front page. The real fragility of the system might actually lie in these thin margins, in the overworked staff dealing with the mundane but absolutely critical details like data entry, map update.
Mundane but vital.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that low-speed collision at LGA becomes highly significant because it suggests operational mistakes are happening even at the basic levels, and that inherent fragility is just magnified enormously when you realize the data pilots need to avoid hitting a skyscraper high above the city. That data is being managed by a team that's reportedly been slashed by 60%.
Yeah. It changes how you think about aviation safety, doesn't it? We often picture failures as, some massive engine explosion or a dramatic mistake by the pilot in the moment. But what this deep dive, looking at these sources, really suggests is that the next big catastrophe might not look like that at all. It could be triggered by something that seems almost bureaucratic, like a spreadsheet error, a tiny mapping mistake made by one of just 8 incredibly overworked specialists trying to keep track of every new tower in the entire country.
It's a sobering thought.
It really is. So what does this all mean for you, listening to this? Maybe consider this paradox. You have this small, non-fatal sort of fender bender on the ground at LaGuardia, and yet it's potentially acting as this incredibly loud warning flare, a signal for much bigger systemic risks lurking high above our cities. It really forces you to ask some tough questions about the infrastructure we all rely on when we fly. How do we even assess risk properly when some of the most critical safety nets are these small, almost invisible teams, working silently on data far away from the airport terminals we see? And maybe the biggest question is, what are the real hidden costs when we prioritize budget cuts over the meticulous, careful management of information that is quite literally life-saving?
Okay, one question for you. Do you think urban airports like LaGuardia are at higher risk for accidents in crowded airspace? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.